SVC Media.
Welcome to the iGaming Daily Podcast, analysing the news from the betting and gaming industry all over the globe, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market.
iGaming Daily is still on tour in Barcelona, and today we are rounding up some of the industry's biggest headlines from the last few days away from the show floor here at ICE. Betsson has provided investors with an update. We have exclusive thoughts from the Gibraltar Gambling Commission, and we discuss the outlook for the overseas territory. And finally, we wrap up with a quick chat about the affiliate sector as IGB affiliate opens its doors. So welcome back to iGaming Daily, supported by Optimove, the creator of positionless marketing and the #1 player engagement platform for sports betting and iGaming operators. I'm Charlie Horner, and today I'm joined by the mighty duo of Ted Menmuir, our editor-at-large, and SBC News editor Ted Orme-Claye. Ted OC, how are you doing?
I'm all right, mate. Yeah, thank you. What have I been up to? Obviously, another busy day. Saw the speech from Shay Sergev from DAZN earlier. Came at quite an interesting time for them, given shortly after they announced their integration of a predictions market. Caught another bit of a conference, met a few people from Flutter, Allwyn, a couple of other companies. So, yeah, another busy day, productive day, I hope.
That's all well and good, Ted, and I'm glad that you've had a productive day, but there's one burning question that I have.
Oh, right, okay.
How did the new suit go down?
Oh, very well, mate. Compliments left, right and centre, non-stop.
Fantastic. Good to hear. Ted M, how's things?
Nothing quite as exciting as Ted OC's suit. So I'm here in the sanctuary of the media room, away from the bustling gaming halls.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, well, let's kick things off with Betsson, because they provided a preliminary update for its Q4s recently. Ted, how about you give us an overview of what they told investors and how the markets have reacted as well?
Okay, so it's important to sound out that Betsson have presented a trading update. Their revenues are on forecast. However, they've had a steep EBITDA decline from 70 to 50 million, and they've issued kind of a profit warnings for Q4 to round off the year. Betsson are always kind of the bellwether for European PLCs as how they track and what's going to come in for the rest of the year. The decline is primarily due to new taxes being implemented in Central and Eastern European markets and a continued decline in the Nordics. There will be eyes tracking kind of Betsson's performance. Also, we've seen kind of their share price take a dip because of this trading update. It's interesting to see just how early kind of these headwinds are coming in for the PLCs. And again, it's pointing to kind of a Q1 of adjustments inbound across the board.
Yeah, I believe on the day itself, when the report came out, shares dipped by around 20%. But Ted OC, it goes to show that taxes going up are having an impact, and we haven't even spoken about, or we haven't landed at the point where the UK taxes have come into play. So it's going to be an interesting one to see develop over the next few months, isn't it?
Yeah, I think building on what Ted said, you can often use Betsson's result as a bit of an early indicator as how the financial situation for the wider European industry might pan out for the rest of the year. And then, as you said, it's interesting. Obviously, Betsson is a company that doesn't have much of a presence in the UK. Certainly, let's compare that to your Flutters, your Entains, and so on, who obviously have a huge UK profile and UK exposure. I think we can probably expect that to, as you've mentioned, ring true a lot more in their forecast. Perhaps we'll see a much bigger impact from that. Obviously, not for the first quarter, but after those new taxes come in April, I think we'll start to see the sting, definitely. Ted, I just saw you were going to jump in with something.
I just think going off, yes, look, there's a 20% share decline, but it's so... I think it is kind of dangerous kind of value the company just in share price alone. There's always been kind of this indication that that's going to kind of kick in. The short-term investors are going to pull out of your PLCs. I think you've got to kind of put a much more kind of grounded view on their share price there. They will rebound, Betsson. I think the others will too. But it's again, I think there's kind of a recalibration, not only in terms of the operations, but in terms of the investor profile of the industry.
If I can just jump back in as well, Something with Betsson that's quite standout for them and will probably prove to be quite a good lifeline this year is the fact they're very well positioned in Italy. And the Italian market is already the second biggest in Europe, obviously behind the UK. It does have a lot of marketing restrictions, which, as we've talked about many times before, does make life a bit more difficult for operators in getting themselves out there. But from what I've seen of a lot of the conversations and kind of international comparisons made, this was talked about quite a bit at our conference back in Lisbon, actually, is that the Italian tax framework, there's a much warmer reception to it from the industry than the new one that's going to come into place in the UK, a lot more than the Netherlands, obviously, which has become a bit of a bogeyman sort of thing, you know what I mean, for when it comes to tax, more than France as well. So I think the fact that Betsson have such a strong position there will probably provide a good bulwark against some of the other more difficult markets from a tax perspective, as well as obviously their Latin American revenue as well, where they've been doing decent, with a focus on Spanish-speaking markets and gradually taking on Brazil as well.
So Betsson blamed rising taxes in Central and Eastern Europe and Central Asian markets for some of the slowdown there. But I'd love to dig into the Nordics a little bit, Ted, because that's home territory for Betsson, really. They're headquartered up in Sweden. So what is it about the Nordics that has sort of instigated this slowdown?
Again, in the Nordics, it will probably come down to casino revenues being stagnant, and that market just exposure has not grown in the past 3 years. It does not replicate kind of what's happened in other markets, and I don't think that, especially in Sweden, they got this kind of generational pull towards online that you see in other markets such as Italy or Spain. Again, the restrictions that were imposed in Sweden have really affected your top line players or your high value players in the Nordics. They know they have to go through numerous restrictions or numerous kind of provisions to deposit to play at the level that they want to do, and it's also affected kind of the reward to the market, the RPG of slot games. It's put simply, I think, online casino in Sweden is defective. The government are looking at it this year, and it's a market that needs urgent changes.
And talking of the Nordics, all eyes will be on Finland over the next 12 months, and hopefully we'll have a little bit of a report from what's going on in Finland on tomorrow's edition of iGaming Daily, when we reflect on the Gaming in Finland event. But just going off what Pontus Lindwall, CEO of Betsson, has said, he said that Betsson has made significant investment in its product over the last 12 months. And, while he said that there are lots of costs, he is looking forward to 2026, in particular the World Cup, where hopefully, he says, they can start reaping the benefits of those investments in product development. We've spoken about it before, Ted. The World Cup is going to be a huge few weeks for the sportsbook industry, right?
Look, I think Pontus can be positive, and I think you've got to be kind of reflected. This is a company that has had, I think since 2022, it's had 4 very kind of successful back-to-back kind of breaking years, right? And I think that the management at Betsson trust their strategy and trust the way that they've been able to scale on a market-by-market basis. They do have a good pedigree, right? But I think kind of now kind of the headwinds and the demands are changing. They might have to kind of rethink 1 or 2 kind of operations, maybe 1 or 2 kind of exposures to markets. The Central European markets will get tougher this year. In terms of their markets are kind of reaching saturation, but it's also that provision of extra taxes coming on board. So again, Betsson, a company that diversified early, that took on headwinds early, will have to kind of like change up its strategy once more. But that's gonna apply to all kind of gambling licenses in 2026. It's who does that quicker, faster, and sharper.
Yeah, and Betsson, for its part, does think that it's done that much quicker than its competition. Ted, how are you looking at Betsson's strategy for 2026, and do you think the World Cup will play a big part in that?
Yeah, absolutely. Any operator, especially a sportsbook focused one, would be an idiot not to factor the World Cup into their approach to 2026, right? It's interesting, really. I think last year I remember speaking to Betsson's leadership, After, I can't remember which quarter it was, but after a financial filing, and we talked a bit about the FIFA Club World Cup at the time, and they said that had been a decent event for engagement, but the comparatives with the Euros the year before were just were nothing particularly major. You know what I mean? It paled in comparison really to the Euros. So then I think this year, kind of, even though we've got all these new taxes coming in, we're kind of fortunate in a way. The industry is kind of fortunate in a way that if there's any year that you're going to get all these tax and regulatory pressures, it is one where it's come in with a quite a big event that is going to draw a lot of customers in, get a lot of interest, and they should get a decent financial boost from.
Brilliant. Well, Ted, we'll take a quick break and we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about Gibraltar.
SBC Leaders connects the gambling industry's top-tier operators and associations to share the best ideas, collaborate on solving the biggest issues, and push innovation throughout the betting and gaming industry. If you're an operator and want to join the discussion, visit sbcleaders.com for more information.
Welcome back to iGaming Daily. Ted M., you recently sat down with Andrew Lyman, the gambling commissioner in Gibraltar, for an exclusive chat for iGaming Expert. Tell us, what did you talk about, and what insights did you glean from Andrew?
So yes, I spoke to Andrew Lyman, gambling commissioner of Gibraltar, and it was mostly to kind of get Gibraltar's position and get kind of their feedback on how they're going to tackle the upcoming tax hikes on the UK, and also how kind of that tax hike is going to change kind of the economy of Gibraltar. This is gambling licenses contribute the highest business tax rate or business income for Gibraltar. It's circa kind of 50%. As Andrew said in the interview, that he now believes that the effective tax rate in the UK will go upwards of 85 on most licenses. So that's really going to eat up at the EBITDA and the profit level. And it does impact Gibraltar directly, because the taxes gained from iGaming, go directly towards healthcare, towards elderly treatment, towards housing and social care. And this is something that Gibraltar kind of looking to kind of head on. It also comes at a time where they told the government, the UK government, that they had started to work on their own gambling act, and they've also had to revise that gambling act to kind of focus less on UK licenses and to start kind of pushing it outwardly. They are looking across the board, not only at gambling itself, but kind of wider fintech, crypto especially, and it's also recognizing that Gibraltar has been through a constant change in the last 10 years, significantly due to kind of Westminster decisions, not only in gaming, but Brexit, its relationship with Spain, its access to Europe. Gibraltar kind of now views that not only gambling itself, but kind of the way it structures licenses has to be reflective of how business operates, especially in gaming, where you might not necessarily choose Gibraltar as your operational hub, but you might choose another European jurisdictions, but it wants to have a kind of connection with the greater industry and say, well, choose us to kind of domicile your license, but we recognize that you have operations in Romania or Georgia or other European jurisdictions. And it's, I mean, they aren't, I don't think they're licking their wounds, but I think that they are trying to appeal to new licenses, more international businesses, and recognize the kind of like the generational change of the industry and what it's undertaken in the next 5 years.
We know how important Gibraltar is to the industry, and as an industry hub it has become over the last 20 or even more than 20 years. But it is increasingly fighting to keep that position, because there are other jurisdictions who are trying to hold the same position. We've spoken about it a lot. Malta, there's other places, Cyprus, Sofia, Estonia, even more recently. So, Ted O.C., how do you think Gibraltar should be looking to reassert its position as one of gambling's sort of biggest hubs?
Oh, mate, you love chucking me the tricky ones, don't you? As a disclaimer, terms and conditions, I do not recommend that the government of Gibraltar takes my advice.
No, with that suit, Ted, you look the part.
I don't know, mate. It's a really tough question, this one. I think it seems like they're already looking at doing that for the reasons that Ted discussed with Andrew Lyman this week. And we know that we saw lots of LinkedIn posts and things from Andrew Lyman in the build-up to the UK tax judgment, where he was making his concerns about what impact it could have quite clear. Obviously, with many firms domiciled and licensed in Gibraltar being active in the UK and counting that as a very core market, I think they're clearly already making the regulatory adjustments and looking at the wider industry, the global industry, and how to engage with that in different ways. It's interesting that Ted, obviously, as Ted mentioned, looking at fintech and crypto and things like that, because that is something that the Estonian regulations that you mentioned are starting to include, and there's some projections that Estonia could become kind of one of the first launch pads for regulated crypto betting within the MiCA framework. There's a couple of stakeholders who have that opinion. So yeah, perhaps we'll see, as Ted said, further engagement of that side of things from Gibraltar. But I'm not confident I can give a complete answer to that question, to be honest.
One thing Andrew Lyman kind of underlines is that it's not about competing with other hubs. It's about a compatibility with the industry and recognizing that every business chooses its own structure and has to be able to do so, whether that's Malta or Estonia or Cyprus, right? However, Gibraltar wants to kind of engage with that business and say, look, maybe choose certain services or certain kind of operations, whether it be your banking, your domicile, come and speak to us, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean that just because you pick Gibraltar, you don't have to, you have to shun Malta or another gaming hub. Also, I think that they're kind of targeting kind of wider components of the value chain. So, your compliance issuers, your payments, your gaming studios, right? What they see is that I think especially they're moving more towards kind of the B2B over the B2C, because they think that B2C, especially in the UK, is going to get consolidated. So it will become a smaller licenses, right? And they have to be taken over, most likely by B2B services coming to Gibraltar.
And so there is this Gibraltar gambling bill that's been mooted. What's in that, and how does it sort of look to attract those B2B suppliers and other stakeholders?
Well, that's going to be kind of dropped in by H1. Again, it's repositions how Gibraltar can go to market and domicile licenses. Primarily, they're going to focus on a much more kind of wider international remit. It's not going to have that kind of attachment that you used to with Westminster. As Ted said, it's going to allow them to kind of look at kind of new disciplines, crypto, and especially kind of integrated services. The other section that you did mention was the fact that they're going to have a greater scrutiny of how the license is structured and on management, on who manages the license and who actually is domiciled to be in Gibraltar carrying that license. A greater focus on compliance too, and one-to-one kind of management of licenses.
Well, we'll leave a link in the description for listeners who want to read Ted's interview with Andrew Lyman, but we'll leave that one there for now, and we'll end by having a little chat about affiliates, because IGB affiliate opened its doors yesterday when this comes out, and we have our new issue of affiliate leaders available for listeners to pick up at the event. Ted OC, what do you think affiliates are thinking about coming into this week, and what are the main challenges you think affiliates are facing in 2026?
I mean, I think a lingering challenge that's been around for a while for them is obviously going to be the impact that AI-generated content and things like that are having, I think, on search results and competition from that kind of side of things, whilst also looking at how they can make use of the technology themselves. I know that's a long-running talking point, so I imagine that's been on the floors a bit. I guess another thing that just to relate this back to what we talked about earlier, something that some companies may be concerned about will again be the tax increases, even though that isn't going to directly affect their business, as in they won't be paying it. The companies who they work with will be, and that could potentially. And marketing budgets are apparently predicted to fall. Like I think Flutter, Entain, and Evoke have all said that they're probably going to reduce marketing budgets by about a fifth, 20%. So it could be a knock-on effect from that. How they're going to navigate that kind of challenge. I think Ted is a bit more clued up on the affiliate scene than me, though. So I'll let him save the day here.
No, the feeling I got from the floor really was that the real questions here of kind of like how the deals are structured, what the operators want now. Is it just all out? These all out marketing campaigns trying to get scale, and also who are kind of these new brands coming in, who to trust, right? Who can really pay these high kind of rewards in there? It's again. We're talking about a value chain that is going through fundamental kind of changes here, and the affiliates are part of that. I think that as one of the things is that in the next 6 months, I think there's going to be complete kind of restructuring, especially on the affiliate side, of how kind of campaigns are undertaken, how they're priced up. I think that even the operators, when you speak to them, they're looking to place kind of much more kind of sharper terms in there, in terms of the reward structure. This is going to be a much more kind of focused kind of ROI sector, and also kind of in terms of how that ROI is applied and how it kind of kicks back, within the campaign's framework. Yeah.
Yeah, I certainly think commercial agreements are going to come under the spotlight and under much more scrutiny this year. And then on the consumer-facing part of the affiliate sector, I do think that branding's going to play a huge role, as well as product development. I think that's going to play a key part in navigating some of those AI-related challenges that Ted O.C. mentioned. But if you want to really get ahead of the curve and work out what the challenges are that affiliates are facing, and importantly, how to potentially navigate them, please do pick up a copy of Affiliate Leaders. You should be able to pick them up at IGB Affiliate, or alternatively, if you're not in Barcelona, you can find a digital copy online. But for now, Ted O.C., thanks for your time. We'll be badgering away and finding more meetings and getting more news for tomorrow. And thank you to the listeners for tuning into today's episode of iGaming Daily, and come back tomorrow to keep up to date with all the latest global gambling news.
Thank you for listening to today's iGaming Daily podcast, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. If you want to find out more about some of the subjects raised today, feel free to explore any of the sites in the SBC News Network, or check out the latest edition of the SBC Leaders magazine. Happy reading.